Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Safe Workplaces Dialogues. Um, I'm Shrimoy, and I lead the legal and content team at Lawcubator. I'll be your moderator for today's session. For those who are joining us for the first time, Lawcubator is a workplace compliance platform that helps organizations build safe and compliant workplaces. And at the heart of our platform is a secure complaint redressal system that allows organizations to handle sensitive issues like sexual harassment with confidentiality and transparency. We also offer a wide range of e learning courses on topics like PoSH, workplace ethics, intellectual property awareness, DEI, and more. Now, today's topic is the employer's role under PoSH, and we are joined by two founders who bring rich on ground experience in compliance, culture building, and operational responsibility. Their perspectives will help us better understand how employers approach PoSH implementation beyond the legal checklist. So let me introduce them. First, we have Aditya Pandranki. He is the founder and CEO of DocuFile, which is a legal tech company building India's contract infrastructure layer. It is a unified, compliance first platform that brings together e signatures, e stamping, identity verification, and full contract lifecycle management. Aditya brings more than 18 years of experience across banking, tech, and enterprise operations, working closely with organizations where compliance, risk management, and process efficiency are critical. Welcome, Aditya. We are very glad to have you today with us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Srimai. Thank you.
We also have with us Sanchit Agarwal. He is the founder and CEO of New Me Care, India's leading women focused healthcare platform and chain of specialty clinics. Before turning to entrepreneurship, Sanchit spent over 20 years in global leadership roles, including global managing director at Accenture, senior leadership roles at Deloitte, and earlier stints with Barclays and Lehman Brothers. Beyond business success, Sanchit is a strong DEI champion and a vocal for he for she advocate, working to ensure that women receive equitable access to healthcare both in workplaces and in communities across India. Welcome, Sanchit. Again, we are very, very happy to have you today with us. Moving on to the first round. So let's start with you, Aditya. When you first learned about the PoSH requirements, what was your biggest concern or question?
So, since we are a platform for legal tech businesses, compliance has always been the forefront of all the businesses, the entire business. So, when I first understood the depth of POSH compliance, my biggest concern was not about meeting the statutory requirements. It was about building a workplace culture where people felt safe, respected, and empowered to speak up. The legal frame is well defined, but the real challenge is the psychological safety for the employee. So my concern was, will our employees truly feel protected if they are ever need to raise a concern with the employer openly? That was primary concern, and that led us to think beyond the compliance documentation. We wanted to ensure confidentiality, create trust in the internal committee, and eliminate any fear of retaliation. POSH is ultimately about dignity at work, and it has been felt, not just printed on the policy document. That was the primary concern for us, and ever since, we have kept the policy in such a way that people can openly come up to the committee and then actually talk about their challenges if they have anything like that.
Perfect, perfect. That's exactly what is expected from the leadership and the founding team. That's really great to hear.
And we have I have a co-founder, Manjula. She being a part of the business, it moved us in that direction that we should actually go for the employee first approach rather than getting into the compliance first approach. So it was always in that direction. So we made it mandatory to all the employees to follow the compliance in such a manner.
Wonderful. Thanks, Aditya. So, Sanchit, the next question for you is if you need to advise an early stage startup founder about PoSH implementation, what are the top 4 to 5 steps that you would suggest?
Sure. So, for Numi, at least for us, it was a bit easier given the background I had in the corporate world. So, day one, I was exposed to this. So, it was a very natural, extension for us. And I have two women co-founders with me as part of the leadership. But if we look at a typical new age company starting up, my personal advice would be it should not be a formality. It should be a day one cultural decision. Start early and do it the right way because there are a couple of things one need to understand that this is something especially in today's world is non-negotiable, right? And the earlier you start the better. So there are 3 or 4 kind of steps I would recommend. One is don't think that I have 1 employee or 5 employee, right? Or I will do this when I grow big. It has to start day one. And also the non-compliance, as Aditya mentioned, and all of us are aware, risk penalties, reputational damage is there, and then there is a founder liability. So I think one has to acknowledge that it has to start the day you start the operations and you start hiring your teams, right? Second, which is again standard but sometimes not followed to the T, is a compliant, IC or internal committee, which constitutes, a senior women leader, whosoever is the senior most in the team, maybe. So it is, by law, it is like, I think 50% women and 50% men. Get a qualified external expert. And I think the other mistake some of the teams I've seen do is that just make it as a sub team or a HR function. In my view, this should be kind of an independent body, literally working with closely with the founders to say that this is, and that shows a seriousness as well from a founder's perspective. The next thing I would say is the policy itself. Often we have seen that they are legal. Sorry, Aditya, but I think this is maybe something I've observed, and that it is very, very technical and legal.
Correct.
Right? And people don't understand language. And so many times in our own company, and we did the same mistake, by the way. First draft was really bad in the sense that because we had an expert who got it to us and it had only jargons. So in my view, it should be plain language, simple English, real examples, zero ambiguity, right? So people understand, but what it is all about. And most of these like new age companies and startups, we have a very young crowd. They're not exposed that much to a structured environment where you have these implemented at large scale. So that's next. And the last 2 very quick points would be train everyone, especially the senior leaders and anyone who's manager level with some reporting structure, because I think it's important for them to talk the language. And the last thing, in my view, it should be, I think Aditya alluded to it, it should be a safe, heard, and respected environment. And it should not that employees scared and not trusted. So I think those are the 3, 4 things I would say is the right way to look at it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sanchit. In fact, all the points that you mentioned, I can relate to it. We have often heard some clients saying that we are still not, we haven't reached 10 employees yet. So can we just wait for it, or do we really need to comply? So that mindset, as compared to use, shows the difference in leadership. So wonderful. So now that we have had a basic overview about PoSH, let's discuss about the backbone of this entire compliance, which is the internal committee. So Aditya, the next question for you would be, what steps did you take to ensure your internal committee was constituted correctly as per the legal requirements?
There's the framework has been defined by the law itself, right? So we took a structured and a transparent approach, which is law aligned, to build our internal committee. We have identified members based on emotional maturity, gender sensitivity, and neutrality, not just seniority in this particular industry. And we have ensured a female presiding officer. As Sanjit said, it's like 50% of women, and a credible external expert who is a lawyer also, who is from the women's right department. She has an experience in that particular division. And all our members, all the team members underwent orientation covering the inquiry and the reporting procedures, do's and don'ts of the conductings and hearings, timelines mandated under the Act, and the confidentiality protocols and non-retaliation standards. We have trained all these aspects to the employees, and we have issued an internal notification, updated the employee handbooks, and ensured all the employees know who the IC members are. If they have to approach to them, they can actually approach them even without informing us. They can openly go to the IC members and then have the discussion on their own. And we have prepared templates for complaint sort of thing. And then if they have to record the minutes, we have created the templates for the minutes also, the investigation reports, which are handy just in case if we need to do that at any given point of time and ensure the procedural fairness. The objective was it was not only the compliance but also the credibility and the trust in the system. So that's how we have created the internal members in the committee.
It's wonderful to see how you have actually helped the IC with all these templates and everything to build the culture and the ecosystem. So it's really amazing, because sometimes what we have seen is the leadership doesn't get involved and completely depends on the internal committee. And often the internal committee members are not very experienced. They are probably,
Exactly.
they have other their day-to-day job to take care
That's true.
also.
Yeah.
On the same line, Sanjit, the next question for you would be, what steps do you take to ensure that your IC is well trained, especially the members who are not coming from a legal background, and how they are updated on PoSH laws? How do you ensure that?
Fair. So I think one is just a statement that, see, the training of IC, untrained IC, I would say, is a legal risk in my view, because obviously if there's any decision being taken, so it is very, very important. I think as founders, we need to ensure that we follow the letter and spirit, right, as we say. So one is mandatory IC training, which covers the law, the procedures, the report writing and the case handling, and there are enough and more options now available can help you with this that. So we when we started, so we have a mandatory training every year, and there is a annual refresher we do. We also, when interesting thing we have done last year is we asked our external committee members, because our committee members sits on multiple other committees, to get, without obviously classifying the information, but what are some of the gray area judgments of best practices they have seen in their experiences. So I think the best practices part helped us a lot, actually, especially RIC, to understand various perspectives. Third, I would say, is very interesting thing, and I may make a controversial statement here, but see, technically, PoSH as a law, as in the law is or the act, sorry, not the act is for women, and the women can only be the aggrieved women can be the complainant, right? That's the law. But increasingly, what is happening, and this is pure experience I'm sharing, and by the way, in NUMI, for example, we have 80% women. So it's the gender diversity is heavily skewed towards women. So what we have done very interestingly is also train kind of our committee members to handle if any I would say event happening for male members or LGBTQ as well. So while the act doesn't cover it, but one has to be, gender inclusive, as we speak about, and increasingly, if you see, especially in services industry, the ratio is now more or less similar. You're talking about men to women ratio in the teams. So we have added that as a new thing as part of the training, that how to handle, lack of better words, reverse cases, and those are some of them are kind of technically possible as well. And the last thing, I think, just continuously reinforcing the part around empathy and the procedural fairness, that how one has to conduct. So those are the 3 4 things we are at least following in our organization.
So you have a gender neutral policy.
Correct. So while PoSH is the primary driver, and the so we have a specific policy, but within that we have an addendum which says these are the additional steps for men and LGBTQ as well.
Perfect. That's something that everyone in the audience should take note of. And we also recommend our clients to go beyond the law and listen to the intent of the law and not just the what's written in black and white. So wonderful. Gender neutral policies, the entire compliance. I mean, we are also expecting some judgments from the Supreme Court in the coming days, which will establish that it's going to be gender neutral going forward. But this is really exemplary. Wonderful. Okay. So, continuing on the importance of training, Aditya, the next question for you would be, how do you ensure that mandatory PoSH training happens for all employees each year? Now, often companies do it as a checklist, but how do you ensure that your employees are actually learning and not just, playing the videos or just sitting there while a live training is happening?
Yeah. In fact, like we have actually institutionalized the PoSH training into our organizational rhythm itself. Like we have a training calendar, annual training calendar at the beginning of the year itself, published at the start of the year, and then scheduling the refreshers, just like Sanchit told. Like we have refresher modules also well in advance. When is the actual training and when is the refresher happening? It's on their calendars, and it is mandatory to complete their training. Is delivered via the HRMS portal that we have. So the HRMS attendance is also be covered on that. And if the completion is happening, not happening, the tracker is there. If there is a non-completion, then it's going to be escalated to the respective team members, the team managers. And the role-based sessions have also been defined, the standard sessions for all the employees and in-depth case-based workshops for managers and the IC members. The onboarding integration when a new employee comes onto the platform, like when they join in our company, Docify, they have to complete a mandatory PoSH training as part of their joining formalities. And this is a recent thing that we have actually implemented after we signed up with Lawcubator as a PoSH expert for us. And we have also came up with the kind of posters, email notifications, reminders, short awareness videos, and scenario-based discussions in the team meetings. Whenever there is an opportunity, we bring up those topics to have an awareness with the employees. So we make it as an intentional topic to speak across all the departments. And also an automated reminders will keep going to the employees until they complete the entire training. This will ensure the awareness is not a once in a year kind of event, rather than, but it's an ongoing cultural reinforcement that we have created for the employees, and it's non-negotiable for them. They have to do this as part of their job KRAs also.
Wonderful. So, Sanchit, the next question is, you have partially commented on this, but how does your organization ensure that a legally compliant PoSH policy is drafted, notified, and accessible to all employees? And most importantly, how often do you update it?
So I'll answer the last question first. So the frequency is annual. That's what we're currently following. Having said that, recently we had a case where there was a change in IC members and all. There was an exit, and also there we updated based on any organizational change. But as a thumb rule, we follow it annually. Now, in terms of how it is a legally compliant, and also this is some advice plus suggestion I would give to everyone on the call, that please take external legal help. Most of us, when early stage companies or even a bit mature companies, don't have a very solid legal teams in place. So please take external help, like platforms like Lawcubator and others. So I think our idea was very simple. We got an external person to vet the policy. It is aligned with the act, the rules, the latest judicial guidance, and all that, right? And the other thing, we also made sure that it's not a copy paste from the chat GPT or internet. See, today's world, one can, use chat GPT, create a policy and just implement it, right? So that is what we were very strict, because see, it's still AI is there, but it's still not that intelligent to get the nuances of your organization. And as I mentioned, in our case, we are a healthcare company and we are not only office based. So just to give an example, we have clinics, we have, field staff and stuff like that. So ours is a complex working environment, hybrid. I'm talking about the models, right? Hybrid, remote, and whatnot. So you need to cover all of them, right? So that policy had to be tailored like that. Number one. Number two is also, as I said, we are slightly skewed towards women. So accordingly, the policy had to be drafted while keeping the essence in place. So that is one. Now, how do we notify? Is It's very very simple. So we use an onboarding tool, our tool. So we have there is a policy document. So it is mandatory when you go through. As I think Aditya was also talking about. I think it's very similar. It is mandated. You have to, at part of the onboarding, you have to go through that. It is hosted on that HR tool. In case of our office premises, we have put out a printout and put it on the board here in the office. And whenever we do the trainings, it is recirculated or refreshed. Now, in terms of accessibility, so it's mostly digital for us, and we do English language. But one thing which we have got a feedback, and I don't know if it's relevant to a lot of people on the call, is doing into multiple languages. So, like our clinic staff, currently some of them, while they understand English language and all, some they don't understand the entire essence. So we have now translated into Hindi and put it in our clinics as well. So I don't know, maybe not be applicable to everyone, but that's something one can look at if there is a relevance of non-English staff as well.
Absolutely. And we actually recommend that the posters and even the training be done in regional languages as well, because office boys, vendors, house help, everybody would be a part of, would fall under the ambit of PoSH compliance. And I can't resist but mention here that we do offer trainings in local and regional languages.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Oh, good to know. I didn't know that.
I just had to mention it. Okay, wonderful. So the next question is very timely. Aditya, for you, how do you ensure that the annual PoSH filing and reporting obligations under PoSH are completed on time? And what is the process that you follow every year?
We have a set process, but again, like as Sanchit told, that we recommend always take help from an external legal professional while you're doing these compliances, because it's not everybody's forte. So it's always good to leave this part to the professionals than we doing it on ourselves, right? So you will not be saving a lot of money out of it, but when you look at the bigger picture, it is always better to hand it over to the professionals rather than doing it on our own. So though we follow the ISO 27001, and that is also as a compliance as PoSH as a part of the ISO 27001 also, right? So we have a compliance calendar, annual filing dates, IC reconstitution, timelines, and training deadlines are mapped out every year in the month of January. And both HR and the IC chair jointly own the filings. This avoids last minute dependency bottlenecks. If you keep it only to the HR, or if you keep it only to the IC, they'll say that, okay, I'm not aware of this, I'm not aware of that, right? So rather, if you can actually give the joint responsibility, so both of them, the HR team as well as the IC, are jointly responsible for doing this as a joint ownership, and a continuous documentation, like case registers, if there are any, you can update it on real-time basis. Then all the training logs have to maintain systematically. Quarterly meetings have to be documented. And in December, we conduct an internal compliance readiness check to ensure all the documentation is complete. So recently, we have again renewed our ISO. This has become a part of that compliance as well. So we have to check all the documentation is intact, accurate, and audit ready. And we'll also ensure that we submit the company declarations and acknowledgements with the help of the external legal professional, where again it has been introduced by us by Lawcubator to us. So we have done that. And PoSH filings are treated like financial compliance. So please, everybody on the call, treat it as a financial compliance. It's non-negotiable and then very time bound. So it's going to impact the entire business in such a way that if there are any sort of issue that you come across in non compliance in PoSH.
So, the next question for you, Sanchit, would be, how does your organization ensure that there is no retaliation or adverse action against a complainant?
So one is it has to be it has to be top down. I think, we as founders in our company, we are very clear. We often talk about it in our calls. So we are fortunate there are no major incidents reported in our company, but wherever we saw or heard something on the lines which could be a potential POSH issue, we've been very vocal about it. And retaliation is the top thing on the mind in terms of the consequences. So we are very strict. We are very clear and articulate that retaliation, if found, will be leading to separation or serious offense from a consequence perspective. So we have actually put that clear message in our policy, as well as we communicate. So that's there. And then I was talking briefly is also about ensuring that if any incidence is being reported. See, the bigger issue we've been seeing is because of the fear of retaliation, especially culturally in India, these are not reported only. Majority of the incidences. So how do you make sure that your employees are feeling safe and protected, and they are reporting? So that is through retaliation and no kind of adverse action against the complainant. So that's the kind of messaging has to come from the top only. So we continue to reiterate those messages.
Right. It's always a gray area, and you can't really have a straightforward answer. Now, one situation that I wanted to discuss was, sometimes we have seen that there are some cases where there may be a difference in opinion between the internal committee and the employer. So, my question to both of you would be, how do you handle such situations where, as an employer, you do not fully agree with the internal committee's findings or recommendations? And what steps do you take to ensure fairness without overstepping the IC's independent role?
So I'll take this. Like, see, anything that is like something comes up like this, like it has to be taken on the basis of the facts. It's not only about the IC or the complainant, anything, right? So we as humans have the judgmental mindset that you should always go with the facts, what is lying in front of you on that particular instance, right? So based on that, I think you can always go back to IC and then have this genuine discussion with them, putting your own point of view to them, to have a fair understanding about the consequences which may impact whether it is the IC is coming with the justification on the basis of the facts, or is it anything different apart from the facts, right? So the importance should be given to the facts. I think that should be a fair call in any instance, like even though it goes to a certain litigation and all those things. So the ultimate judgment will be based on the facts. So as an employer, I think as you should always go with the facts, what is lying in front of you when you want to put your opinion to your IC.
Yeah, so I would 100% agree with Aditya. I think it is, so I call it the fair justice system, right? It has to be the way any judge in any court will take a call, right? Based on pure facts and evidence and stuff like that. I think one has to follow that approach. The biases have to be restricted. As an employer, I think one also has to understand it's your reputation as well at stake. If you go do any kind of bias or favoritism or anything of those sorts, right? So luckily nothing has happened at our company which is of that sort. But my personal understanding would be it should be the pure justice of pure logic of fair justice. Look at the facts, look at the evidence, look at what the submission of IC committee is, and any other data we have gathered. And often joke na data doesn't lie. Data झूठ नहीं बोलता है. So trust the data and then go with that if you are in that dilemma.
Perfect. Yes. Before going to the final question regarding the best practices, just another point on confidentiality. So often we have seen the process should be like the employers are communicated at the last moment, towards the end of the inquiry circle. So how do you ensure that grapevine, basically how do you ensure that the employers are not getting involved from the very beginning itself, and not just the employers but the communication is not happening with other employees as well?
So as I said, like in the beginning, like it all lies with the trust of the employee on your employer, right? So if you can actually build that trust while having this imbibed in the culture itself, the employee would openly come and have this information updated to the employer. And employer has always should give this confidence to the employee, telling that yeah, this whatever the data that you're going to share or what are the matter that you're going to discuss with the employer will be kept confidential. And also taking in external help from the IC and being a part of it should be a joint call, not only as an employer. If you bring in your IC also during those conversations and build that confidence to the employee to open up and then have this discussion in front of the IC as well as the employee, then that can actually eliminate any sort of ambiguity. So it has to be in such a way that you have to have this confidence on the employer that you can openly go to the employer and then open this up, right? So many a times, so most of the times, like the employers will straight away put their papers, and you wouldn't understand why they have put the paper. Like, why? What is this happening? Right? So you would only realize after the employee has left or somebody else is actually communicating this to you. Rather, so it lies with the employer that you build that confidence at the beginning itself, and it has to be imbibed in the team's culture as an open culture that PoSH is there to take care of any sort of consequences or any such instances that are going to happen to an employee. They can openly come up to the employer and then disclose this information to them. So I think like it has to be imbibed in the culture itself. That has to be clearly communicated to the employees.
Right, like complete trust in the IC as well as the employer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So at our end, we have done it very simple. Just don't get involved as founders or as management. We just don't get involved. It's a very clear message. Even if somebody is coming up with such similar requests, there is a committee. We are very clear day one that as management team or as key managers, nobody will get involved. See, the moment you get involved, is in human nature, there will be some level of bias, right? Or some level of further fact finding, digging, trying to solve for it. So we are very clear day one. Because बात ही नहीं करनी इसके बारे में. There is a committee, there is a HR process, there is a policy around it. Please follow that. Number one. Number two, see something what you cannot control, and which is we have to be cognizant as leadership teams and founders or startups and all, is employee to employee communication will happen. Whatever rules and policies you put in place, you cannot restrict that. That a person will talk to the person sitting next, in the next chair or any friend in the company, and so that grapevine, what you're talking about, the only way and this is I've experienced significantly because when I was in my previous role in larger organizations, that happens much faster. Is just ensure if you get to know about some employee to employee things happening, just have a very clear stance. I've actually done it once. I've just gone into the area where we have all the entire team sitting, and I said, "Boss, I want to talk about this. There's been incident without taking names and all. We don't want to talk about it. There is a process which is being." I think one has to again to Aditya's point. I concur that one, it is culture. Second, communication has to be very, very pointed and straightforward. This is non-negotiable. You just can't talk about it. As simple as that. Yeah.
That's great to hear. We have heard about employers who are interfering. So the fact that uh, you're so strong on the point that we do not want to get involved and let IC do what they are supposed to do is a brilliant message for everybody.
Yeah. There will be bias. Yeah, let's accept it. We are all human there. Suddenly, eventually there will be something, then you will start getting into it. And I also believe that if you are driving that culture, just let the team do it. Empower them. Empower the IC to do what they're supposed to do. As simple as that.
Right.
Right.
Especially if the say the accused or the person involved is somebody very important for the organization. We have seen this kind of
Right.
problems happening where the employer doesn't want that person to leave or something.
Yeah.
But thanks for putting out your opinion. Really, really good for all of us to take a note of it. All right, so we move on to the final question, which is what best practices, especially creative ones, you want to implement in 2026 to make your organization safer and zero tolerance to workplace sexual harassment?
So in
Aditya, we can
2026,
start with you.
so in 2026, our vision is to move from the compliance to culture maturity. Some key initiatives that includes is the to create a safe space for early reporting and pattern detection. If there is a certain pattern that is happening, that has to be detected early in advance, like so that there is a communication which goes to the IC and then they can take the necessary steps for that. And empowering every employee to identify and interrupt or report inappropriate behavior. If something is happening, like a colleague cannot keep quiet, oh, it's not happening with me. It's not my lookout, right? They should also, so we are empowering them to, so as a whistleblower that they can actually inform the IC about any such instances that can occur in the team, right? And then we are also coming up with surveys and pulse checks and open sessions to understand any discomfort areas with the employees. So that's one part of it. And then there's short and scenario based learnings every quarter to reinforce the boundaries and respect and communication etiquette. Also, the managers, we made this as a this year, like we made this as a KRA for the manager itself or the reporting manager itself. That will include as a part of safety scores and the response to the misconduct. So, and then there are regular conversations on inclusion, dignity, and psychological safety across all team members. And it's like a clear information to the entire team that zero tolerance and clear consequences. Look, if you highlight consequences, I think that's the best way to communicate to the entire team. So that like highlight the consequences. If something like this happens, this is the kind of repercussions that you will have. So you better be in your limits and then do your work as required, right? So a policy reinforcement, ensuring the misconduct is addressed promptly and transparently, right? So as Doctify, our goal is to create a workplace where safety, respect, and dignity are lived values, not just like the legal obligations or for the compliance sake. So that's those are few pointers that we are implementing in 2026.
Wonderful that you mentioned bystander intervention because even though it has not been explicitly mentioned in the PoSH Act, but it's companies like yours who can actually promote it. Very important point to prevent sexual harassment. One thing you mentioned, which really caught my attention, was the safety score. Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
So there is a kind of survey, and there's a scorecard that we are actually giving to each of these employees, especially women employees, taking the opinion that there is a scoring mechanism, how safe you feel in. So there are certain questionnaires that is has been assigned to these employees, asking questions related to their safety, their dignity, and the comfort at the work. So based on that, we are actually putting a scoring mechanism that gives a kind of pattern also. If there is a similar pattern coming of the 5 6 employees like that, right, there's a pattern that is actually happening. So we can actually take preventive actions rather than reactive course of action than that. So I think that's the way we are doing that.
Fantastic. And is it like an anonymous
Yeah,
survey?
it's purely anonymous. So they don't need to disclose names or anything. Yeah.
Wonderful. This is something we all should take a note of.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Aditya.
We'll
Sanjit?
implement that, Aditya. That's a good learning. I think that's an interesting one.
Absolutely.
That's a good
Yes.
one. No, so for us, a couple of things. One, I think I've spoke about. I'll just reiterate. While we started in a way, but we want to double down on that. Is gender neutral, while PoSH is in place, but do it for men and LGBTQ colleagues as well. So that is what we want to completely practice in 2026. Number one. Number two, I think it's very similar to Aditya. I think the quarterly one we also have started doing, and we have a calendar now that every 3 months, instead of so annual compliance is one, and refresher and all is one, but the kind of short refreshers or conversations talking about in the town hall. So we do every fortnight we do a town hall in that. So end of every quarter, one of the agenda we will be doing is around PoSH in the town hall, right? So that's the second thing we're doing. Third, I would say is it's easier for us to do is kind of more of a support system from a counseling and mental health perspective. If there's any incident reported or anything going through, so for all our colleagues. And given we are a healthcare company, so a lot of the consultations, diagnostics, everything is kind of complimentary as well. But specific to any kind of counseling or employee assistance during or after any of the inquiries. So we will be establishing that psychological support. I think that's very, very important because otherwise it can be traumatic for the person, but also the environment in the workplace and everything. So we want to be about that. So those are the 4 or 5 things. And the last I would say is just continuously reiterating zero tolerance, zero ambiguity. I'm like somehow big advocate of sending a very, very strong message every time you talk about this topic that this is absolutely zero tolerance. Absolutely, absolutely zero tolerance. So I think we continue to do that. In my view, if one is able to just advocate that, then itself it solves half the problem, in terms of the messaging and all. So those are the 4 or 5 things we are looking to implement in 2026. And what Aditya mentioned about the scorecard, I will take that from Aditya.
Thanks, Sanjit.
Absolutely. That was a really good one, Aditya. And thanks for mentioning psychological safety, Sanchit. Usually it's all about filing the complaint, filing within the time limit, sending it to IC and all that. But we often overlook what the complainant and even the respondent is going through. It's a very traumatic phase for them.
Yeah.
So psychological safety is non-negotiable. Excellent points. Thanks for sharing that. So we now open the floor for audience questions. If you have any questions for our panelists, please drop them in the chat and we'll take those up. Meanwhile, I'll just mention that if any of you would like to take this conversation further with your internal teams, we have several e-learning courses on PoSH available in regional languages as well, along with a robust PoSH complaint management system. So please feel free to reach out to us after the session if you would like access, if you want to have a look at it. We'll talk about that later. But in the meantime, if there are any questions, please you can drop them in the chat and we'll be able to take them up. Okay, looks like no questions, but a lot of insights, a lot of a lot of new ideas for all of us. How do we motivate employees to report if any incident happens? From Soumya.
I can pick it up. I think, as I mentioned earlier, it should be very plain and simple that the employee should be feeling safe and safe in a way that they are able to freely report without any retaliation. So the only way I see is strong communication from the leadership and reiteration that we take this seriously, zero tolerance. I think some of those things, if done from day one, can set up that culture. That see, and this is purely, I think, cultural. The moment you say that these are the five things non-negotiable. So I'll give you another example. So one is PoSH. Second is anything related to financial fraud. For example, is another one which we follow in a. There are few guidelines we actually started doing at the time of interview. So this I miss sharing. So when we do interviews and we do final rounds, and when I do the management round or one of our co-founders, we very clearly say these are the three things are non-negotiable in our company. We start from that time before even onboarding and getting someone in the company, and from there you continuously do that level of strong communication. I think people should be motivated enough to report.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, Soumya. Okay, if there are no further questions, we'll wrap up. So thank you so much, Aditya and Sanjit, for sharing such practical, experience-driven insights. And some are so new, so creative, and we would love to collaborate with you in the future to see what all we can do together to make workplaces safer. And sorry, today's session highlighted how leadership decisions, cultural intent, and consistent compliance practices shape the real impact of the law inside an organization. Usually, we mostly have speakers who are IC members, but this time the perspective was so different and so fresh. So thanks a lot for that. And to everyone, okay, there's one question from Ayushi. If any male employee conversation with colleagues with abuse language in a frank way in presence of female, then it comes under PoSH case. Aditya or Sanjit, would you like to take that up? But Ayushi, it does. I mean, it depends on the
you are the
perspective.
right person to tell this. I think
I was about to say,
yeah, it's a clear case of PoSH, so there's no doubt about that. So
Yes.
even the
Ayushi,
gestures itself is like if somebody is actually giving you a gestures in an appropriate way itself can lead to a PoSH case. So forget about even talking, right? So even a gesture which is not relevant, which is disturbing to a female employee itself can actually lead to PoSH case. So this definitely can be a PoSH case. Yeah, this is a clear case of PoSH.
Absolutely. Actually, there's one point we need to take care of. See, PoSH sexual harassment can be quid pro quo, like you do this, and otherwise you will get this kind of a thing, or it can be a hostile work environment. If somebody is using abusive language and somebody is feeling uncomfortable, unwelcome, then it could be a PoSH case. However, it is very subjective in nature. Maybe to someone it is absolutely normal, rare, but still possible. But if somebody feels uncomfortable and feels that this is a hostile work environment, then it would definitely be a PoSH case, even though something directly has not been said to that female. But if it happens in the presence of her, it can still be a PoSH case. It's a very subjective experience. Another question from Soumya. We do have implemented a gender neutral PoSH policy as well. We might not be there on all floors, but would it be correct to confront directly if we see an employee is visibly uncomfortable but not reporting officially?
So it happened with us. So I can share a practical example what we did, right? So it was to your point, it was visible that there was something going on. So it was a very simple conversation by one of my co-founders, a woman leader, and the HR together with the person. That is there anything she wants to report? So we did do that to your point, but it was in a very, I would say, natural way that we wanted to talk to you and got her separately to a room, and then the HR and the leader had a conversation, and apparently it was a small thing, it was not that big, so we managed it, but we did intervene on our own to understand the situation better. We did do that.
I hope that clarifies your point, Samya. Okay, thanks. Helps. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks again, Sanchit and Aditya. It's been really a pleasure hosting you two. And thanks, audience. All right. So stay tuned to this space. We will keep hosting such conversations on a monthly basis. Again, thank you for taking time out and being part of this one.